You're a brave guy.
Stupid.
Agree.
There's a fine line.
All right, I think we're going to call our meeting to order. And let's start with a roll call. If you could start down at Brian's end.
Brian Stewart, Park Supervisor. Matt, Board.
Lauren Pfeiffer.
Bob Freshman.
Dennis Wiley.
Sukheenai.
Danna Kemp.
And in our audience,
John Ruder. Brandon's on. Jim McMaster. Alan Holstein.
great, thank you. You've all had a chance to see the minutes. They were sent out when we still had Sarah. Any changes to the minutes? Do I have a motion to approve the minutes?
Make a motion.
Bob made a motion, a second.
I second it.
Dana made a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Minutes approved. The next item, sadly, we lost Sarah, but maybe for a good reason. So we have to talk about replacing our secretary. Sarah was taking notes during our meetings and typing up the minutes. She has a really simple template that she follows that's real easy to plug the information in and send that on to Kat. So I'm asking, are there any volunteers here tonight that would like to step in as secretary? Is there anyone willing to take notes for the minutes tonight?
As I said, I'm taking a note, but I hope the other can help too, so we can, compare notes. Because if I miss something.
Oh, okay. I'll
Yeah.
take notes tonight also. I already have a office or, on this committee, so
Right.
I,
So for now, between
sure.
you two, if you send me the notes, I will see if I can plug it into the
okay.
template, but we do want to fill the secretary's post at some point.
Dennis, can you send the template out?
Sure. In fact, that's what I'll do. I'll send it to all you folks.
I might change my mind once I look at the template.
Yeah.
So we're down one board member or committee member, and then I also had a conversation with Jake the other day, and he's really tied up with his work, so he has resigned from the committee. So we now have two positions open, and I guess I'm looking at Matt to ask how do we handle that? We'd like to fill the positions as soon as we could. So I guess I would leave that to the board.
Yeah, we have our meeting coming up in a week or two, so I think we can reopen the applications. Usually what we do is we leave them open for, 3.5 weeks, and then close them before the next board meeting, and then we can make the appointments then.
Well, Kat would need to put that out to the public if we're gonna get a public deal, or,
Yeah,
so.
so we could make them public before the end of the month, and then March, we would have, at our regular March meeting, we can make the appointments.
Were there very many applications last time when you did a call? I was just wondering if you already had a lot of applications, could we
I
just?
don't remember how many.
Okay.
There were a good number of applications.
Seems like if there was enough, perhaps we wouldn't have to open it again and it'd be a little bit expedited. But maybe that's,
Well, I don't know, I'm not exactly sure how we handle that, go look at who applied before and then say, ask them for so.
Yeah, we could do that. I think it's probably better policy just to open it up again,
okay.
because then
Just
those,
depends how quickly the committee wants to speed.
right. When is there going to be a March meeting for the Trails Committee?
Yeah, second Tuesday.
Second Tuesday, okay.
We are changing and I'll talk about that later, we are going to change our April date because of a conflict.
Okay. So we'll make sure that we have this on our board meeting agenda, because we can't do anything until our next meeting.
Okay.
At the earliest, so.
Okay, sounds good.
Yep.
Okay, with that, I'm going to turn it over to Jim to give us some more information on the bypass. We got a little bit of a taste of it on our field trip on Friday.
Yeah, I hear
So we
you.
may-
Go down and,
So we may have some more questions for you.
I heard you guys were hurdling over barbed wire. That's awesome. So, oh, shoot. The bypass trail has always been something that a lot of community members have been interested in when they saw that the bypass was going to be built. The reality of it is that ODOT, by law, is supposed to build a bike ped when they build a new highway, and that went into law before, as I recall, this bypass was built. But it didn't work out that way, and I think that I wasn't in on everything with the past superintendent and the conversations with ODOT. And Casey couldn't be here, and I was hoping he could be, but he was out of town. And he could give a lot more specific information. But, to me, when I travel the United States to different places, and especially in my retirement, there's bike ped paths all over, whether it be Boise, Idaho, whether it be back in Indiana, whether it be Eugene, Oregon. Rogue River's got one. Because people want to get out and they want to walk and they want to bike and they want to do that safely. And a lot of people can't travel, even up as far as, Riley Park. They live here in town. They want to take their kids out. They want to take their bikes out. And the thing that's dynamic about this trail, and I gave you a map of it, is that it ties two communities together. It ties both Dundee and Newberg together. So, to give you an example, I was out in Dundee and I asked people that I don't know. I said, "What do you think about this bypass trail?" And so I did that out where they're building the new Dundee School, which is the end of basically the western terminus of the trail. And there was a mother and her son and their dog, and I said, "What do you think about having this trail?" And the little boy, I don't know, he's probably 8 or 9, he goes, "That would be the best thing. I could take my dog and walk on this trail. I could ride my bike safely. I don't have to worry about cars." So that's kind of why these trails are created. And the community looks at it as a livability part of the community. I look at it as like building the aquatic center was a big product for this community. The cultural center is big. The golf course is big. Those are big projects that people see, and this will be just as big and probably even used more than are a lot of other facilities, because what's unique about this project, when you get on that bike ped path, it's free. And that's important. That's a big deal for our taxpayers. It's free. They can use it. So on. So the first phase of the project is the bridge that you probably saw in the canyon you saw there. And that is, we already went and basically approved the contract to have that built. That was about a year and a half, 2 years ago. 2 years ago, it was before the new board members were on. It was approved. But then we run into all the land use issues. ODOT's going to do this now. Well, you can't do that. And this folks are going to do this, and you can't do that. Well, this isn't your land. This is your land. You get into all this stuff, and it's frustrating for me because I'm a project guy. I want to get it done, moving, and go. So we've got that behind us. So right now, the first phase, which is in your packet there that I showed you, is at the city. And the city is going through plan review. And so I would say another month that'll come back, maybe sooner, and then we'll see where we're at. And then we have to go back to the contractor, because your contractor is going to sit there for 2 years. And I'm impressed that they're still interested after 2 years, but they are. They're excited about it. It's something they can put in their repertoire of things that they've built. And so the ODOT has put in $1.8 million into this project. And the Park District will be looking to put in the rest through SCCs and possibly more grants and so on. So that first bridge is not the largest bridge. There's another bridge over Chehalem Creek that's a little bit larger. And, if you get the first part done, so we can basically come from where the bypass ends over there and And if you notice on Springbrook, you notice that big sidewalk. And people always ask, why did they make such a big sidewalk? Well, part of that was ODOT saying, who did that work, this is part of the bike ped path. And then it continues down through a small industrial area over here where you enter the bypass and then go. Part of the trail, if you looked at it, did you guys come from this side, Matt? I showed them both. So both, you already see that there's a paved road down into that. That's part of it. And then, did you show them where you get off into the industrial area? So you guys know. So, I'm hoping that we can break ground on this summer and see if we can get moving on this. I think a lot of what our board and what the Park District needs to do and the staff is a lot more education for the public. Every single person I ask, and go ahead and go ask, especially the folks that live over in that area on that side of town, what do you think about this? And they go, that would be the best. One of the holdups in all projects right now, in any project this Park District does, is cost. Because it's just concrete, rebar, and so on. It's just gone through the roof. And so that's a concern, but I don't think that is something that will stop us in the long haul. I tell people if we don't build it now, it'll get built. It could be 20 years from now. A new generation comes in and they build it because they think it's the right thing to do. And it just costs a lot more, but it will be done. Also, what you may not know is part of the Dundee School project through the school district, working with ODOT, I think the school district, don't quote me on that, they have a branch off the back of the school that goes over to where the 8th Street overpass is there. So that's going to be built. And then when ODOT worked on the flatter parts, not the canyons, but the flatter parts of the bypass trail, they put a bench in for us as they did that. So that's there. So, we're going to have to improve on it and so on, but that's there. So a lot of it is there. Parts of it are there. The big cost is your bridges. And another big cost, which I don't personally agree with, this is public, isn't it? The other big cost that I don't personally agree with is when they say ODOT has different rules for what they want to do with bridges. And so when you go to, let's say, I'll give you an example, Shampooey State Park, everybody's walked the trail in Shampooey State Park, that one bridge there, the wooden bridge that goes across, then you continue on to Butteville. They don't like those kind of bridges. They want to build these big concrete structures that'll hold emergency services and so on. So I'm hoping in the next section of bridges that we can work with ODOT and try to delineate that so it's not such a huge cost. If you've done there's the Banks Vernonia Trail, anyone that's been out on that trail and you see the bridge that goes across there, the old railroad bridge, to me, that's an adequate structure. Maybe just a little bit wider, but that's an adequate structure. So we got to talk to them. We got to figure it out and make it less expensive for the taxpayers. But so, and the one thing that a lot of trails, especially in this county and in other counties too, folks are worried about us or basically trails going through agricultural land. Most of this project is in the ODOT right-of-way easement. They can't do anything else except road or bike ped in that easement. Nothing else can be done. Can't do agriculture in there, can't build homes in there. That's set. So it's set for us to do that. There's going to be some bumps in the road, of course, like any project. But it's exciting, and I think that, again, I think from a livability standpoint, my mantra as a board member and my mantra when I worked for the Park District as an employee was we want to create an environment where people don't have to go to the Fano Trail in Tigard and take that trail through their community. They can stay right here, enjoy it right here, and basically it would just be more livable. You don't have to leave your community. The last thing I want to cover is we have some extensions from different places to get to that trail. So one of them is Friends Park has the possibility of connecting, which would be great for that huge neighborhood. They don't have to come out of the neighborhood, go across 99, do all that rigmarole. They can just get right on there and they can, safely go to Fred Meyer if they want that way. They can go Dundee if they want that way. The other avenue is in the main part of Ewing Young Park. We have an avenue to go from there. On this side of Chehalem Creek, we have an avenue to tie in there. And then we tie in down at Dundee. And you never know what's going to happen. I always tell people, not now, but soon, all the land up to the bypass will be housing. I mean, from 219 to 8th Street, that will all be housing. Now, I may not be around, but it will happen because it's just the nature of the beast. And then the bypass, well, the reality is the bypass didn't stop construction of homes off of, Winooski area out there. They're on the other side of the bypass now. So it tells you what's going to happen, and the city has a whole riverfront plan, and then we're not sure what's going to happen with the old mill site. So we have all those things. So, and the other part of it that everyone toots their horn about is, we need more tourism. We need more money coming into our community, and I get that. My first thing is our citizens, them using that facility. But I can tell you right now, I live just outside of Newberg, and there's a fellow that has a company there. It's called Wine Tours. It's a bike wine tour company. They will be using that all the time to get into Newberg safely. You don't see them riding down 99. So that's where we're at. So, questions? Yes.
So Jim, you said ODOT's contributing 1.8 and Parks and Rec is responsible for the rest. Can you remind me what the rest is?
Well, I'm not going to give you that number because the rest isn't in stone
Determined
yet
yet?
because we're probably going to have to renegotiate with the contractor because of the time span. So I don't want to give you a number.
Okay.
I mean, we're probably, it could be around 4 million total. Could
For
be more,
phase
could be
one?
less.
We're talking just for phase one?
For the bridge, for phase one, that section, yeah. But don't hold me to that number because,
I'm not going to write it down.
I did write it down.
Okay.
So Jim, there is a legal requirement for ODOT to offer this pedestrian alternative
That is
transportation
true.
piece. So is there any kind of agreement with the city and ODOT that, they are in this for the long haul, that, or is it just in ODOT's?
Casey could answer that better than I can. I don't know if Brian knows,
Okay.
but I don't know of this agreement. I know that they want to help us. I think that I'm a little concerned. I think ODOT basically said they needed to finish the bypass. We don't have the money. We'll help you, Park and Rec. We'll help you, Newberg. We'll help you, Dundee. I think that's kind of where we're at with that. So we will be fleshing out things with ODOT for sure to have them help us get this done.
It would seem like they shouldn't leave the city hanging if costs are going up. And have the city, you guys got to handle all the.
Well, again, the city of Newberg and the city of Dundee really don't have much to do with this. It's really park
Right.
district driven.
District, okay.
Yeah, it's not, I mean, I would assume, not all of them, but most of them are probably happy to, hey, that's just going to help us have a nicer city. But this is more park district driven. I know that a lot of folks that I've talked to on the Dundee, some of them on the Dundee City Council and on their park committee, for Dundee Park Committee, they're just like jazzed that this is going to happen.
Sure.
I mean, because they see the benefit. I mean, I can get on with my bike and jump on from Ewing Young or wherever, or just out here, and then go have a lunch at Red Hills, or they could come from Dundee and take their bike on a nice day and come into Newberg and take advantage of what we have here in Newberg. So it's just a great, smart thing.
Do you have an approximate length of the entire thing, if it's all built?
It's interesting. You would think it'd be longer, but it's just a little over a mile.
Okay.
It's not that far because the city limits kind of squeeze down into
that
like this a little bit. So, yeah, it's not that far.
I have a question, Jim. You mentioned education that park and district supposed to do. Have you done any much of education at all?
I don't. We did do some work, I think the year before last, the trail committee was on Wednesday markets and covered a lot of this with folks that came through. We have it on our website, but I think that the park district needs to do a lot more marketing of this to let the public knows what's happening and get everyone excited. And again, like I said, I might could brag that I took Matt out before he was a board member. Remember that, right?
Oh, yeah.
And we went over there, and there was a guy walking, I don't know, with his wife or whatever, maybe by himself, and I asked him what he thought, and he goes, that would be the best thing, just to prove to him that people were excited about this. And it would be, I mean, it'll help put our community on the map, and some people maybe not want us on the map, but it will help, because they'll say, you got this amazing golf course, you got this place you can ride horses, you've got this amazing swimming pool, you've got this cultural center, you've got all these neighborhood parks. Okay, what does Tigard have? So there you go. Or Sherwood, or any of those places. So we're really lucky. We're really lucky that we have a park district. I'm just tooting my horn. I'm spent a lot of time here. So anything else?
So this whole thing is 1 mile only?
It's a little over a mile.
Wow.
I know, it seems like it might be longer, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not. It's pretty short. Well, you've driven the bypass.
Yeah.
So just drive it and hit your odometer.
Bucket, yeah.
It's not that far. But again, and I know that, you probably saw where the sidewalk was put in there. I forgot the name of the street. As you come up out of the canyon there, there's a big sidewalk beside it. That's part of it. Goes around and underneath the bypass a little bit. That's built, and then where the new subdivision went in over there, they've got that big sidewalk and everything ready for it. So it's like pieced together. And some's been done by ODOT, some's been done by developers. But yeah. Any other questions? Yes.
So, other than the education part and talking to the community, how else do you see the committee helping these efforts?
I think education is a big deal. And then when it comes down to, look, we have to find this much money, there might be somebody that'll donate for it. There might, we don't know. But if they don't know, we won't know. And that's kind of how it goes. And we might, I'm not going to say that I'm just one board member, that we would go out to the public and ask them for a bond to build it. I mean, some jurisdictions have. Sometimes it's just budgeted within their budget and then they just go with it. Sometimes it's used SDCs. There's a lot of different ways, or we can get our friends at ODOT to help us a little more. And that's going to be my push, is to visit our friends at ODOT and say, okay, what are we going to do to get this done? Because you put in this nice new road and not a bike ped path. I know I was told by one guy, well, they can walk. There's a walking area right there on the bypass road. I said, really? You want me to quote you on that? He didn't want me to quote him, so.
So Jim, when you're talking about you might go back to talk to the friends at ODOT, so that means phase 1 we got 1.8 million.
I'm sorry.
So I'm asking about, it seems like ODOT must have planned for phase 1, 1.8 million. Phase 2, they must have the budget then set up for phase 2, or no? They don't, let's go
No,
back.
the budget would be us.
I see.
The budget would be us. We are the one that are designing it to meet their parameters within their easement, is kind of how it goes.
I have one last question. The new piece of the bypass that they're going to start, is that going to affect anything on your current map? They're gonna start talking about phase 2 of the bypass, which will connect that road for Wilsonville Road to, is that Winooski, the road that goes to the dump?
Well, that was that was a good question. Because that was a little bit of the holdup initially. Well, we have to have, but it sounds to me like in case they wanted us to hold off a little bit. I should have said, well, if you want us to hold off, are you going to pay for the difference in cost? But yeah, so that was one of the things, but that's been worked out.
And will it change the trail map, the direction of the trail or anywhere the trail's located?
Not to my knowledge.
Okay.
At this time. Now, again, we could be surprised. ODOT's changed their roads before. They changed this one before. So, but to my knowledge, no.
But as they do other phases of the bypass, they still have that mandate to provide this trail or some sort of walking path. So we'll probably be looking at,
We'll be talking to them, but they might come back and say, we already built it. It goes over to Fred Meyer around Springbrook. They should. But it's going to get tight for the bypass, as you know, between the hospital and the golf course. We have to move 2 holes, so there's not a lot of room. But, you know, trails is the #1 recreational demand by the public nationally, whether it be hiking trails, biking trails, horse trails. Trails in general are #1 out there beyond golf courses, swimming pools, everything else. Because again, it's free and we're more of a health conscious society. And people want to get out and walk safely. So I think I talked too much. So you can tell I'm enthusiastic.
Yes, Jim, thank you so much.
You bet. And I'm going to have Casey fill you in on more specifics when he comes back. And bring Brian up to speak. I'm sure Casey will. So, thanks.
Very good, thank you. Okay, moving on. I wanted to just recap, or if anyone had any questions or thoughts. We had a really good field day, I thought, on Friday. And I really want to thank Brian. That was really a wonderful, and Matt, to take your time to share those places with us. So anyone have any comments or thoughts or wanted to follow up on anything from our walk on Friday?
Sure, I'll share one thing. By the way, I want to thank Brian and Matt too for providing that. Brian's knowledge is really incredible, and it was a great learning experience. I saw, even after living here for 25 years, I saw parks I had never been to. Ewing Young being one example. I had heard about it. I hike every day, but I've never been to Ewing Young, and I was absolutely amazed at the park with Chehalem Creek flowing through it, some nice trails, you know, the BMX track, the skate park, the dog park, just an incredible, you know, area. So it was a real eye-opener for me to see these other trail opportunities that weren't evident. So I appreciate it very much.
I was going to say thank you also, and are there any opportunities to see more of the park? So would people be interested in doing an additional field trip? We just covered really the 2 in the bypass trip.
I second that.
Absolutely.
Well, maybe we'll look at another spring field trip, Dane. Pick another couple parks. So.
And perhaps there's some that we could do on our own, and then, Brian, you can tell us ones that maybe would be better for you to be there with us, whether because there's things you want to do or that we can help with, or because there's history and background, or...
I'm open to all the above. Absolutely.
Very good. So this brings us to item 7. We had Bob and I had a discussion trying to wrap our brains around the Riley Park signage project and how to proceed and where the district was at with it. And I was hoping maybe Bob and if you wanted to give a recap of kind of what we thought might be the approach.
I can try, and please
And I'll jump
chip
in if
in
you have
also.
to, yeah.
We weren't discussing so much specifics as to all the nuts and bolts of the trail signage, but we talked about which side of the park is the most heavily used. And from my observation of hiking there almost daily, it's the east side, because it's trails that are pretty usable by families, easier to, I think, negotiate. There's not any little trails that sort of wander off to nowhere, all wide, well-maintained trails. So we looked at that as being, say, phase 1 of the getting the final signage project done, where we have the not only the signs that you're putting up now, Brian, the posts that we can do the stickers on, but the junction signs, and as well as the large signage in the parking area to show people the entire park. I mean, doing the other side is important too, but we figured, let's, bite off what we can do initially, and that would be the priority that we would look at, is to do that. Having said that, I know that you and Crave already started putting out those posts, or putting out those marker posts, which is great. There's absolutely fantastic to see those out there and get an idea of where they should be set and everything. But just thinking of, if we want to complete a side, the east side would be the priority to get as a complete, with all the signage, with the big signboards, et cetera, as the phase one priority. And Om is,
Yeah, was the one who emailed when I emailed everyone, but I didn't get any response. The reason, because from last meeting that you, Lauren, mentioned about we should do the priority of the main loops, and I like that idea. And at that time, Dennis asked questions about something in terms of, safety. So I kind of want to know more about it. Just like Bob, we heard about Bob and Chris O'Reilly Park. I walked there probably once or two times, and kind of new things for me. So I just want to know more about the history. And plus getting to know one another more. Beyond what Bob said is about that we coming up that, we're looking to the safety as priority, because some sections of the trail can make people disoriented, not knowing where they are, and getting to, from Dennis, who have experience with the Champoeg State Park, he suggested that, we just go main route and maybe, if possible, if applicable, decommission some area just to make it mainly safety. And then we talk a little bit about what the side should be safe. And, one thing on Dennis' mind, every park, dog is on the leash. So that's one thing. And we just met for only, an hour. Well, the reason is less than an hour because we're supposed to meet at the Bubble Bear in Newberg, and they closed, so we have to find a new spot. And we have one coffee and having fun. And
Sorry I didn't respond. Once I saw Bob was going to take you, I figured you were covered. So I apologize if it was meant to be a full group.
We should do it. We should do it. It's kind of fun to get to know one another and share the idea, not on as a board or committee.
One thing that Om mentioned, the safety issue, and part of what we would like to incorporate in the trail signage is there's lots of junctions when you walk the trails. And I've seen in other parks where they have those junctions marked. It's junction 5 or 6, 7, 8, et cetera, et cetera. And then on the big map, that junction is also, those junctions are shown, as well as a printed map people can take. The safety aspect, if somebody runs into a medical issue, gets injured, whatever it might be, how do you tell people where you are? You can call 911 and say, I met Bob in Crystal Raleigh Park on a trail. And that's not going to help a lot. But if you say I'm near junction 7 or between junction 7 and 8, they can find you. So that was, I think, the safety issue that came into the trail signage project as well.
Just the idea that, so if we're going to move forward at some point with the junction signing with the maps, like you've done at Ewing Young, that we talked about, well, let's concentrate on the east side, and that we should probably go there and make sure all those trails that are shown on the current map are real trails and the trails that we want to keep. I know there's a couple stubs that come off that aren't used anymore, and we probably should eliminate those from the map before we go through and print up a bunch of, metal trail map signs. So we thought we'd do that, by spring. We'd try to get that done. Probably volunteers here from the board could do that. Walk all the trails on the east side and make sure these are all real. Because I think he was pretty much anything that looked like a trail, they were plugging into their map, their GPS units. So.
And I have a question, Dennis, on that note. So totally agree that I think we can do that. And when we talk about taking trails off the map so that we have a good map that aren't there, or decommissioning trails, we are just talking about taking them off the map, right? This doesn't involve like filling in like the landscape,
No,
right? Because I don't think that's.
Generally, you haul a little bit of brush at the entrance of the trail, and that's decommissioning.
Okay.
You may even put a little sign that says, keep out or whatever. No,
Okay.
No hiking trail.
Yeah, my opinion is I don't think that's a good use of anybody's time. I definitely agree that the map should reflect the trails that are there, but I don't see the value in us decommissioning trails out there at this point, because,
Well,
yeah.
if you have trails that you're either going to maintain trails or you're not going to maintain trails.
Yeah.
And when you don't maintain trails, you don't know if you have safety issues out on those trails. So unless you're going to maintain them, that means they're open. But if they're not really open, then why are we not saying they're decommissioned?
So if they're not on the map, does that mean they're closed? Or are you saying like if we're just putting brush in front, I mean, that's a visual cue that you shouldn't go down that trail, right? And it's not on the map, but do we have to put the brush in front? Or if it's not on the map, is it not a sanctioned trail for the park? And then anybody that goes down there is at their own risk?
I mean, it's not really my
I'm
decision,
asking.
but I would
Yeah.
say that if it's not a sanctioned trail, people shouldn't be using it
Yeah.
because you're, wear and tear and maintenance that you're not going to do. And who knows?
Is that something that we should ask the staff if we identified a trail that we think should be decommissioned, or the
Well,
approach? Should we ask
absolutely.
staff if that is something that they are going to maintain, or maybe they just haven't got to it this year?
Well, I'll
I
put
think we
that
need
question to
kind of
Brian.
ask the staff if that's something before we decommission trails.
So from what I'm hearing, and my 2 cents would be, let's first decide, based on, we have different user groups up here that represent different user groups up here, and there's maybe in the audience too for sure, what trails we want to have up there. We have free will to do whatever we want, with the trails. And with that in mind, once we decide that, then we maintain them accordingly and whatever. Some might be very single tracked, that a horse goes down once in a while or whatever, but that might be a good starting point. And then we do like we discussed at the first meeting, that we decide what kind of user-friendly map we might be able to develop. That, other than the GPS maps that we have, or these wonderful different maps, or stick with that. But those are 2 really big points, and then we can really move forward with doing the trailhead signage, the intersection signage, and the proper stickers on all the posts. But it's a big ask, but I think just getting to that point, and this group could definitely lead that charge with staff, figuring out which ones do we want to either do in-house, create a new map, or take to a professional map maker, labeling the way we want to label it, the trails, and then we can sign them accordingly, physically sign them accordingly. I think, personally, I think that'd be a good thing, because I don't ride horses, so I don't know, and I don't know the land up there as well as everybody else, but this might be a trail that doesn't look like it's had a lot of maintenance in a while, but this is a cool trail to take a horse on or to walk down, and it can be safely done. It's just not as traversed as often as some of these other trails. Keep that trail, cool, we'll make sure it's mapped accordingly, but that's my thoughts on it, and I think that would work.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
you're
think
right.
before we get too hung up on it, we need to go out and look at the trails
Yeah.
and determine, well, maybe we don't want that trail, and have that discussion. It's, and that's
Yeah.
all I'm asking.
Yeah.
I think that would benefit staff and the
Yeah.
district for sure.
Yeah,
And then you have that kind
We
of
can
input, and
do a West Side Trail Day.
yep, yep.
so maybe there's our next get-together or field trip, or, however you want it, this committee wants to do that.
When it's
Staff is
warmer.
available to work with you.
Yeah, when it's warmer.
Yeah.
On a slightly warmer day, yep.
And a
Excellent.
question, is that something that I'm looking at Matt, is that something that we have the ability to make those decisions? Or is that something we propose and then bring that back to
Yeah.
the board?
Yeah,
If
I
we
think
change the
you-
trails?
You, as a committee, would work with staff, go there, and then you can make a proposal. I think staff has a lot of leeway on these things. If there's a greater plan to do mapping and we're looking at costs and all that, then that's what you just provide to us along with staff, and then we discuss it and most likely move forward as a board. But yeah, there's a lot of freedom there to, we're not the experts in the board, you're the experts, so we want you to provide information and work with staff and then give us something that's actionable.
And if I could just add the steps, we've taken the real baby step, just of putting out some comforting markers out there around the perimeters and stuff like that, with the encouragement of this committee here, because we're thinking spring, right? That more people are probably gonna be using it. At least that safety thing that has been brought up here, that you can at least feel comfortable, even with the existing map. If I went out there and we get some stickers around it, I could get back to the parking lot or something, you know. So we can maybe keep going with that, but let's, you know, sooner's better, and nicer weather's coming, but totally open to getting together whenever anybody wants, and we can continue with that or slow down with that, because we haven't done anything on the east side or whatever in terms of around the perimeter or whatever, but, so, yeah, that makes some sense.
Okay, any other discussion on this?
Do we want to put a placeholder on the calendar for us to go out there? And we can always change it if it's a
Sure.
That'd be great.
foul weather day. I was out there on Sunday and there was a lot of people. It was nice to see.
I would suggest to meet in some place that we can look on the paper, look on the map, and Bob kindly would point it to me on, this section is kind of, if people walk into it and get lost, it's going to be hard. So at least we know on the paper, have the visual, then we go out to the real thing.
It's pretty, on the east side, it's, I would say, much more difficult to get lost. Because eventually you're going to hit the street or the parking lot. I mean, they'll come back that direction.
Okay.
On the east side, you've got the easy trails around the perimeter of the
On the
three
west
different
side.
fields. Where it gets interesting is the small trails in the forested area behind all the fields that I've walked, for 25 years, but I've even gotten turned around a couple of times. It's interesting. So I would be happy we'll set something up and look at
Yeah.
some of the maybe the more well-used
Yep.
off trails and less well-used, and you can get some ideas.
Right. Excellent.
So
think
do we
we-
want to meet for a paper meeting first? Is that
I
is
think we
that
can
the
meet on the
suggestion?
paper, just like, 15 minutes, then just go out on the field on the
Parking
same
lot,
day.
yeah.
I think we can just email among us and pick up
Okay.
the date,
Let's do that.
something like that.
Will you take the lead on that?
Oh,
You're
sure,
pretty good at
yeah.
that. Okay.
Sometimes I should keep my mouth shut, right?
Are
Yeah,
we thinking March, though? Is that a,
yeah,
we can
I
get going
think,
on it?
yeah.
Okay,
We can begin the email, yeah.
March.
Number 8.
Okay, item 8 is, we wanted to talk about our volunteer day and roles and the needs. So something interesting has happened. I participated on Sunday on a walk at Ewing Young Park, and there's a group that, originally they were called Friends of Ewing Young Park. They've now expanded that to Friends of Chehalem Heritage Trails. And they have gone forward, and I think working with Brian, they're talking about, they've got volunteer days scheduled. And at this point, they have an Arbor Day weekend, Saturday, April 26th. And then they have the National Trails Day on June 7th. And for the Trails Day, they were looking at focusing on Ewing Young Park specifically, and looking at, English ivy pulling and other invasives. And there was also some potential trail work where there's some perennially muddy areas. So I recommend that we actually work with this group on our volunteer day rather than us specifically saying, well, we're going to go sponsor a trail day 2 on basically the same days that they're looking at. So how to move forward with that? Matt Dolphin is managing the website, or basically he's got a list of, I think, over 100 names that have expressed interest in working. And maybe we could do a work session with him to figure out how our group and their group can work together to make both these days happen. So I just wanted to throw that out there and hear some discussion. Along with the work days they're also doing a couple events like the walk we did on Sunday. And one of those is happening March 9th. They're doing a Shad Park community hike. Then April 13th, they're hiking from park to park. They're going from Hoover Park to Friends Park and back as a community hike and bike. May 11th, they're doing the Cultural Center to Jackwith Park and as a community bike and hike. And then on June 8th, they're doing the Getman Loop community hike and bike. So it sounds like, and a lot of the people that are working with this were on the past committee, I believe. And these things started happening, I think, through the summer work they were doing at the
Farmers market.
farmers market. So I think we've got this outside organization that can be helping us to make the things that we want to do happen. So I think we need to kind of coordinate with them on some of these activities.
So are they coordinating with you as well?
With Brian.
Brian? Yeah.
Just the same email that Dennis received, yes. So,
Oh,
those days or whatever, but Matt is reaching out to me and with these suggested activities that they'd like to do in different parks. And Dennis and Matt worked together on doing the Yu and Yang tour and communicated that it'd probably be a good idea if, they bring the two groups together. And
Yeah, there's some very enthusiastic people on that hike that want to get out and start working on the trails.
and when we originally talked about organizing a volunteer day, do we pick one park, or do we kind of pick 3 parks and spread people out amongst the 3 parks based on where people, I know we hadn't
Well,
talked
one of the
about.
things I think is working with Brian is like, so his staff, I think, will need to be there where we're doing the work. So it's like, how spread thin does his need his staff to be?
Yeah,
I was thinking if we did want to see something up at Riley Park, that maybe it could be specifically an equestrian kind of project that could maybe be happening up there as part of the Trails Day. So people that are interested in equestrian would be up there. And then the other folks that are more the hikers and those kind of things maybe would be working on the Yu and Yang sites.
yeah, and similar, sorry, Bob, similar to this organization, there's also Oregon Equestrian Trails, which is a big statewide organization,
Right.
does a lot of work at MacGyver,
Right.
and you're familiar with them. And I think that they've been asking, just person to person, but, about opportunities for OET to help and volunteer at Trail Days. So that could be something we could talk to them about for Bob and Crystal Riley.
Yeah. And then we could advertise this all together, that, here's this equestrian piece up at Riley, and here's some
Yeah.
other activities at these other parks.
I would like it to be, my personal opinion is I think that all the groups should be equally represented. I don't want to fold under one group or the other. I think we should stay represented as the Trails Committee of CPRD. But obviously all work together, but I think it can be a project that everyone contributes on from their group, if you will.
Just one
Except-
thought, if you,
Just because we're part of CPRD, we're a volunteer organization with CPRD, so I would, in other words, I kind of want to stay close to CPRD and not just be individual volunteers for Friends of Chehalem Trails, because I think then it gets a little funny.
I think we would be with Chehalem Trails. I mean, we would be part of that organization. it would be our Trails Committee and the Friends of Chehalem Trails sponsoring volunteer days.
Okay, that's the latter part of that sentence
Yeah.
that you said I
Yeah.
agree with. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I've already discussed that with
Okay.
Matt and his group.
Just, excuse me, one comment is, if you look at how much labor is needed in any specific spot, unfortunately, probably that would be Bob and Chris O'Reilly Park, just by the nature of the size of the park and 13 or 14 miles of trails that need to be maintained. I also, because I see people, especially on a weekend, nice weather, because the parking lot's full. And I think we have an opportunity to put up some signage talking about if we're doing a trail day and when it will be, what would be involved. Because these are the people that are using the park. And I think we would find it a little bit easier to get their help. And it's probably the best way to reach them. Otherwise, you can go on the CPRD Facebook page or website. But that doesn't necessarily reach everybody you want to reach. I just want to take advantage of the fact that you see these people up there, and I think they'd be a willing, say, more willing than the general population to come up and hike, to come up and help at a Trails Day event. And I love the idea of leading a hike for people. I get asked all the time, where should I walk when I run into people in the parking lot? And, I'd love to do a hike for maybe, parents with young children, more serious, whatever it might be, but to have posted, organized hikes
Target audience
that we could
hikes.
take people on.
Target audience led hikes.
Yes,
I do have a question back to Brian, because Dennis says April what, that the You and Young cleanup day, you have a day, April something. That's a good opportunity for us to try, as, I don't care about what organization, as community, come out together. Or let's say we promote it on social media, everything's so successful. We have 100 people coming. Do we have job for 100 people to do at You and Young Park? That's, that's going to be heavy on your
A lot of trees, they have
staff.
a lot of
A lot of
ivy.
ivy.
So if you bring 100 people, and
Yeah.
there's several other activities that are mentioned in this email that could happen at that trail,
Yeah.
yes.
Yes, oh, that's good. I like that, yeah. Good,
Everyone
good.
bring
That-
their own
That's my
tools.
attitude going in, for
Yeah.
sure.
But do you have to prepare tools for them, though, or
They could bring their
they have to bring their own?
Yeah, we encourage that, and the district absolutely would
Gloves.
supply
Yep.
equipment and safety stuff.
Yep.
Just the opportunity, I think, for this group or any group to expose all the things you love and why you're on this committee about different trails, and it's a great opportunity to promote what the future holds, especially like up at Bob and Chris O'Reilly's park, that you could do a great day up there in terms of marketing and where we are and where we're going, and what do you think, input, and just putting that thing on the map, and for sure, a lot of people, it's gonna be their first experience there, but. I
well,
think it-
seeing the signage at You and Young, which was really great, and the story they told about the park in You and Young, that would be a great thing if we can incorporate that
Yeah.
to the other parks, and especially the history of, say, Bob and Chris O'Reilly Park has got quite a story to tell.
Another question, do you normally, as a CPRD or park and district, do you provide some first aid as all? And I'm looking at Matt, I'm not, if someone got poison oaks,
We absolutely, we have background in first aid, we have really good first aid
Probably
kits.
Band-Aids.
Yeah.
Groups get together, and many of us know how to do.
Got you. So I like to pursue, on the You and Young and working with
So-
different
So
organizations.
how about if I invite the organization to come to our next meeting and talk about how we can work effectively together on volunteer days? How does that sound?
Sure.
Is that good?
Yep.
Okay.
Are there other volunteer opportunities besides the volunteer days? Like, do we want to talk about the farmer's market, or is there some other avenue to get the trail name out and the work that we're doing?
Yeah, I think the farmer's market's a great idea.
Yeah, I talked to Matt Dolphins, and I think when he presented that there was a lady who was a previous trail committee just there every Wednesday. At least one or two ladies, and then they just sat at the downtown coalition tent and just asking questions, and that's why they have the friend of the Chehalem Trails. I think they have about over 100. Yeah.
I think in the winter months where people aren't out and about, we might have to rely on social media. Like I know our neighborhood Facebook and stuff. And I went with a neighbor on Sunday to Bob and Chris Riley, and she'd never been there. And she lives less than a mile from the park. So I think we might have to consider non-in-person advertising during the winter months.
Do we know, when's the farmer's market, what month does it start again?
May
May.
usually, right?
Okay.
May
and
to
it runs
September.
through
September.
September, okay.
I've also been contacted by someone that represents youth bicycling, and they would like to come to our March meeting and talk to us a little bit. So that'll also be on the agenda.
The only concern I have about that is the past experiences at board meetings. So do you know what their, what's their agenda? And,
That they want to have youth involved with bicycles in Newberg.
I just didn't want to revisit what we've already revisited previously, the board meetings.
They didn't talk about that at all to me.
And it could be mine because I didn't pay much attention. I never looked. I kind of like to hear, what they want to say. Is that
Yeah.
okay?
Yeah.
Oh, I do too. I just don't want to get into
Like
a battle like I've seen
The-
on some of the
so,
board
okay,
meetings and some of the
good.
other trail meetings.
Is that okay, Matt?
'Cause we've
Should
already
they
kinda
come to the
rehashed
board
it.
meeting?
Oh, no,
That's okay?
They
Okay.
can come. I mean, you don't know what they might be talking about, or you can't prejudge it. So, I mean, they're a trail user group, so they're
Yeah.
free to come and.
Yeah, I just didn't know if the committee can host
Yeah,
discussion like that. Okay,
no problem.
okay. Yeah?
I didn't fill out a public comment form, but you want me to go up there? I had
Sure.
some
Yeah.
questions and comments.
Yes,
about the volunteer
please.
situation.
Yep.
Your name is Brandon, right?
Yeah, Brandon Slider. Nice to meet you. So I'm not sure if anybody on the committee has any connections to George Fox University. I'm an alumni from George Fox, and I know when I was there, I kind of lived in a bubble. It's kind of a bubble in this town of Newberg. They've got Serve Day and stuff. But I personally have some really strong connections to the multimedia department and the engineering department. And I think that there's a really strong opportunity to play to their strengths and encourage them to get out of their bubble and to volunteer, whether that's with the parks, the trails. But, with engineering, encouraging those young students who want to maybe get into civil engineering, right? You can bring them to the bypass trail and be like, how would you approach this? And just get them involved. And with multimedia, those guys and gals always love to film things. So I don't know if CPRD has it in their budget to sponsor some sort of event where they would say, we'll provide a scholarship to the XYZ department to come out and volunteer on this day and such. But I think there's a lot of opportunity there. I'll stick around after this if you want to chat, but yeah.
I think we can provide free volunteer internships.
Yeah, I mean, I know when I was a college student, you take what you can get sometimes. So, yeah, but I just thought that would be worthwhile because I see George Fox as a bubble, and I really want that bubble to pop and get the students out into the community more often. So,
Great.
thanks.
Thank you.
Thank
We
you.
can advertise the trail volunteer days there somehow, too, or we could maybe get that to you, Brandon, and you can put it in the network.
Or if somebody wants to take video or pictures of the parks
Yeah.
and put it on, give to Kat for a Facebook page, social media. Yeah.
Yeah, those are.
So our next meeting date is, again, the second Tuesday in March. However, in April, there's a conflict on the second Tuesday, and we were looking at changing that meeting date.
Oh, gosh.
to the following week, which was
That'd be the
the
15th.
18th. And I know, Brian, you had a conflict on the 18th. You won't be able to be here.
The 15th, maybe? April 5th, Tuesday, April 15th?
I'm sorry, yes. I'm still in March. So, does anyone else have a conflict on April 15th, or we? So
Tax
let's-
day?
Yeah.
Oh, that's right. So the mood may not be good.
I have a question
right.
for the March meeting. Is
Yes.
I've been involved with Tualatin River Keepers for many years. I'm on their board, and we have our meeting I committed to on the 11th, which is our planning meeting for Discovery Day, which is the biggest event we do each year, where we get a couple of hundred people participating in that. So I would love to be in that if possible. If not, I'll just make other arrangements because I will be at the next meeting. If there's any other day but the 11th, to me, that would work for the committee. And for Brian and for you too, Matt.
So like Wednesday, the 12th? Do you want to, any,
Well,
Any day that
we'd have
works.
to go through
I
Kat.
know.
She's got the calendar. I'd hate
Yeah, the
to.
tricky part is knowing if there's another committee
Yeah.
or something else going on
All
here.
right.
So it's up to you, Bob. But you can go to either one. I mean, if you miss a meeting, you miss a meeting. It's
What,
gonna
what time of
happen.
your meeting though, Bob? What time of your meeting on that day?
6 o'clock,
6
Yeah,
o'clock?
Of course.
unfortunately, yeah.
Yeah.
But I will, make sure, I'll talk with them also and see what I can do.
Well, I don't know about, we can say the same date, but moving to like 4:30 to 5:30, I don't know, that's have a conflict or not.
I'd hate to have to do it. I've already
Tell them.
talked to the one cycling person
Okay.
about the
All right.
meeting time
Okay.
and date. So.
Cool.
Any other agenda items you'd like to see in the March meeting? So we can maybe spend quite a bit of time then really talking about this volunteer
Mm-hmm.
party, so we really can walk out of there knowing what we're doing and where we're going with it.
and we're just, the only other thing is, we're going to handle when we get together at Bob and Crystal Riley via email, and then
Yes.
Yeah,
at the meeting,
We can have follow-up from that.
Yeah.
yeah.
One last thought I had was, Bob, you mentioned your volunteerism with the fire department.
Yes,
Do you think at some point they might be interested in doing some kind of a rescue day at Bob and Riley Park? I think it's one of our biggest park and one of the unknowns if somebody does get hurt up there.
I would certainly ask them. It's evolved from when I was with them with their Newberg fire. Now it's all TVFNR, which is a fantastic, huge organization. But they're very, very community-minded and like to participate. I know they do. And I would be happy to reach out to their PIO
Okay.
and see if I can get some feedback on that.
It might help
Maybe
if we, as we do our signage,
demonstrates.
it might help us with the signage piece
idea.
too. Because they might have a certain area, meeting area. Some parks have an area that you meet for the rescue folks meet if you have to rescue someone. And I don't know, it might help with some of our
Were
signage.
they involved with the master plan development?
They did have input.
They did?
They have
Okay.
visited the site.
Okay. Good.
They're basically going to set up wherever they feel is the most convenient.
Yeah.
If it means closing down a street, they'll do that, and it's a different approach to things.
Okay.
All right, anything else for the good of the committee? All right, with that, we're adjourned.